Okay, when divinity calls our souls to dance, that's our focus. Before we go into the real sort of beautiful aspects that is conveyed by the title of this afternoon's presentation, I'd like to start with some basic stuff, just to cover some things. And because we're here for 2 hours, we'll take a short break at the hour mark, because I don't want any of you to fall over. And, okay, so I'm trying to be sensitive to where all of you are. So, how many times have people asked you, do you do yoga? Like, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I just find this an incredibly obnoxious question. Do you do yoga? Why? Why do I find it obnoxious? First of all, they have some idea of what yoga is. And they have no idea what you're experiencing yoga to be. So this is like an impossible conversation. Do you do yoga? How are you supposed to respond? So I have a script for you that you may use. It's a little obnoxious, but it's also true. Yeah, do you practice yoga? Do you do yoga? I mean, they have some idea that of some yogi in India contorting his body, his head is coming out from between his ankles and the arms are disappearing, and that's what they think yoga is, many times. Here's what you can answer. Everyone practices yoga. They don't expect this, but it's true, and I'll show you how. Including you, but you just don't know it. So this is increasingly obnoxious, okay? But again, you can adopt it. Please do not tell them where you got it from. I really don't want to hear from your friends, okay? Everyone likes to connect well with others, to some degree or greater degree. Even if you're a misanthrope, there's some people you like to connect with. Absorbed in personal pursuits. Everyone is absorbed in personal pursuits. Utilizing the body for various activities. Of course, we're using the body all the time for various activities. Breathing easily and without obstruction. Of course, who likes to have a cold? You really appreciate the luxury of breathing through both nostrils and just, I mean, it's a luxury, it's beautiful. And having a cold reminds you how nice it is to breathe. Being alone with oneself for oneself. Sometimes we call that alone time, okay? Striving for something very meaningful. Oh yeah, I mean, psychoanalytic thinkers like Viktor Frankl say we are meaning-seeking creatures. I mean, we have to have meaning. Even if it's worldly meaning, we still need meaning of some kind. Deeply contemplating what is meaningful. You know, getting a little obsessed with it. It's not a bad thing, it's natural. And finally, fully absorbed in something that lifts us up. Now, you know, one time I went over to a friend's house and he and his wife were about to go, I just dropped in. He and his wife were about to go to a Baltimore, was it Orioles? Is that what it is? Yeah, Baltimore Orioles, is that baseball game. Now, I had never been to a baseball game and I barely knew what baseball involved. Is there too much echo on this, I think? Yeah. So I went with them. And I was just astonished at these fully grown, mature adults, how they just became utter maniacs from their seats. I was looking at them more than what was on the field. In fact, what was on the field seemed slightly slow to me. But in the bleachers, fascinating. I mean, these perfectly grown men acting like total maniacs, yelling and screaming. I mean, people don't normally act this way, and this whole wave thing. I found myself, being lifted up. Anyway, it's just amazing. We're just swept along. We love being fully absorbed in things, whether it's bungee jumping, whether it's, going to the football game, sports of all kinds. But what about art and music and poetry? These things lift us up. Human beings love it. We love going beyond the normal. We love transcending our normal existences. I remember when my daughter was a newborn, she must have been, 2 months old, 3 months, something like that. And I used to throw her up in the air. And most of the time I caught her. There are a few times that I'm not like sports oriented, so I missed a few times. But when she did go up in the air, she cackled, and her little useless limbs, if you've ever seen a baby human, the limbs are useless. They don't do anything. They're just there. And so, anyway, her limbs she had this contagious cackle when she was up in the air, and she loved it because she was going beyond her body. I have apologized later to her when she was an adult about the times I missed. I just want you to know that, okay? So, anyway, these are all things that all humans engage in. Well, guess what? These are the 8 limbs. The 8 limbs, Ashtanga Yoga, are denoting 8 attributes of what it means to be human. It's not just for yogis. We're already practicing yoga, but we don't know it. We're practicing it unconsciously and partially. So I call this partial yoga, the 3 Ps. Partial, those of us who come to a place like this, we're practicing it deliberately. So we're practicing it. We're not just partially doing it and living out the human life, but we're trying to enhance these qualities, these 8 human attributes when we do yoga. And that's why you can say to your friend, you're already doing yoga, but you just don't know it. You don't know it. So use that script if you want, but do not mention me, please. I've had yoga students mention me, and it's not pleasant. So there it is. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana. By the way, it's dharana, not dharana. Okay? Dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Okay? So that's what these are. And this is what everyone wants. Everyone does. If you're a human, this is what you engage in. Yoga is not something foreign that we're superimposing upon the human, but rather it's taking what is constituently occurring attributes and characteristics and enhancing them. That's yoga. So, partial, practical, and perfective. The 3 Ps. The perfective comes after many years of practice, or if you're a natch from a previous life, as the Gita says, then you take it up pretty quickly. I suspect all of you on this side had been doing yoga from a previous life. This side, I don't think so. I don't know. This is why they're over here. And you guys over here, I think there's a previous, you're going fast. That's good. They'll catch up. Don't worry. So the idea is that Patanjali explains that we can take up things at a very moderate, but of greater intensity and greatest intensity, these 3 levels. And we may start with certain limbs. We may start with asana, for example, and pranayama, perfectly fine. Enhance those limbs first. Then we may want to be somewhat aware of what it means to interact with others in a yogic way. Those are the yamas. They are profound ethical principles, these yamas, which we don't have time to go into, but that will be for another time. But and then the niyamas, the personal practices. Then pratyahara, the ability to withdraw from the outer world and not look for nourishment from the outer world, but prati. Prati means to reverse. Reverse the ahara, the taking, the eating, the nourishment. Get nourishment from within, to reverse the expectation of nourishment from outside to inside. Yoga understands that we already have everything we need to be nourished on the inside. But when we expect so much on the outside and don't cultivate the nourishment that we can have from the inside, then there's an imbalance. Okay. This is to show, okay, the three yogas. And in the Yoga Sutra, there really are sort of, not necessarily three yogas, but three ways of looking at yoga. The first is in the Samadhipada. Patanjali is impatient, like many mystics. He gives you the perfection right away, right in the first Samadhipada. And he gives you Ishvara Pranidhana. And I call this Pranidhana Yoga because the other two yogas are commonly known as Kriya Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga. Well, Pranidhana Yoga. This is where we move deeply into the core, into the space within the heart. We talked about this last night. So this is, the most advanced. The capacity to enter within deeply enough to discover the divine presence everywhere and within. That's the macro level of the heart, and the micro level of the heart is now added to the meso, the middle dimension, which is more the conditioned area. So this is Pranidhana Yoga. And then Patanjali says, whoops, I didn't want to go there yet. He says, okay, at the end of Samadhipada, he says, okay, maybe I need to spell it out a little bit more. So we'll talk about Kriya Yoga. So, okay, let's include Ishvara Pranidhana, but there are two other steps that you can take to get there. And first is tapas. Tapas, which is the external practices, like asana, for example, and pranayama. Those are external practices, and which can become very internalized, but that's more at the perfective state. So so he adds those two practices in Kriya Yoga, the three practices: tapas, swadhyaya, the study, the deep study of sacred texts; repetition and contemplation of the divine; and then, of course, Ishvara Pranidhana. And then he says, okay, look, let me spell it out even further and give you the Ashtanga. Let me give you the 8 limbs. And then that's why he gives the 8 limbs in the second half of the second part called Sadhana Pada. And so that's what you've got here. Ishvara Pranidhana is present in all 3 practices. So I say yoga to the first power, second power, and third power. I don't even know if that makes sense, but I put it there anyway, okay? So take it or leave it. But anyway, the whole idea is Ishvara Pranidhana. Pranidhana yoga is absolutely at the core of yoga. But we may not get there quite yet. But everyone, no matter what limb we are exercising, executing, the movement within is always present. It's always there. Even when you don't expect it. This is why the person with the hurt back comes in to just fix the back. He stays because he's feeling something special, something different that he wants to keep, experiencing. So then, of course, there's the Ashtanga Yoga. And then, of course, Samyama is complex, and we need to talk about that another time. But this is when the last 3 limbs of dharana, dhyana, and samadhi become as one. And that's known as samyama, and that's perfection of the 8 limbs. So Patanjali is extremely nuanced and extraordinary. I remember once, before I came to Christopher Newport University in Virginia, when I was teaching at Duke, I taught a course called Psychology of Religion. So the kids come in, they're expecting to learn, about psychoanalytic theory from Freud and even his precursors, and like Fraser and this other fellow, I forget. But they come in and they hear me start talking about, the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. I said it's the first psychoanalytic treatise of the human in the history of the humankind. And then I start talking about Bhagavad Gita. I said, this is the first, recorded therapy session that's ever been known to humankind. Arjuna is the patient and Krishna is the psychoanalyst. So they were kind of shocked. I don't know if I signed up for this, but that's what they got. And then eventually we got to Siggy. I'm on a first name basis with him. Siggy, he's a friend of mine. So the meaning of yoga, and you can help out your friend a little bit more after you give them that sort of, a slightly condescending response. You tell them that yoga, it means, often described with the verb to yoke, but yoga is a noun, so it is a yoke. And so does everyone know what a yolk is? Aside from the egg, what is a yolk? Anyone know? What's that? Yeah. What happened? Okay, look what you're doing right there. It's exactly right. 2 oxen are harnessed to create farm power. That's what a yoke is. And guess what? That's what we do in yoga. Let me show you. A yoke, yes, a harnessing crossbar uniting one farm animal with the second farm animal to create farmable land. Now, I'm no farmer, but I know that much, okay? In fact, look, I've got, here, I wanted to go to Fred and George. This one's Fred, that one's George. These are my 2 bulls. These are in my backyard. At least I tell myself that, okay? I consider the internet my backyard. When I need images, that's where I go. So here's Fred and George. The harnessing power of yoga, uniting one aspect of self with a second aspect of self to achieve a state of union. So that's one, harnessing crossbar, one part of oneself with another part of oneself to create a whole self. That's yoga. Oh, here, I've got it all spelled out. This is in my Bhagavad Gita translation book. This is what's going on right there between Arjuna and Krishna. The power of union, the divine elusive power of yoga is Yoga Maya, then Yogeshwara, the Lord of yoga, and the practitioner of yoga, that would be Arjuna, and then, of course, the state of union. Oh, I even give the page, 248. So levels of perfection. Uniting one element with a second element to unite them. In that sense, perfection. So there are many levels of perfection. A more external level might be uniting an aching body part with the healthy body. And that's perfect. I came with an aching back. I left the yoga studio feeling great again. United my aching back with the rest of my healthy body. That's one level of union. No problem. Low energy, greater energy, elevated energy. Fantastic. It can be just for that. When you walk into a yoga studio, and when you come to even an elaborate place like this, you don't have to sign anything that says, I agree to attain the perfection of yoga while here. No, there are different levels of achievement, and that's okay. Lower self with the higher self, a more whole self. The self, the greater reality, harmony with the greater reality. That can include Mother Earth. That can include the cosmos. That can include, just a divine realm even. The self, the supreme self, and union with the supreme. A broken heart, the deeper heart, a more whole heart. The self, the divinity, divine union. And this would be very much, these last ones here would be very much in the Bhagavad Gita. I would take it up to pretty much after the first two is Bhagavad Gita. So going to the Yoga Sutra, this first extremely important seed aphorism, the second aphorism of the whole text, really is like the way an acorn contains an oak tree. Everything is in the second text, if you can understand it. So only 4 words. Yogash chitta vritti nirodha. Yogash chitta vritti nirodha. Perfect union, yoga, is a transformation of the heart, chitta, as its conditioned turnings, vritti, become uprooted. But it's also a double entendre. I read it again, vritti nirodha, I read again in the positive sense as, and its pure turnings take root and flower. So this is, any of you know Sanskrit, nirodha, the word rodha comes from the verb root rud, which is the 7th class of rud, not the first one. Okay? So that's where I get that. That's how I justify my translation. Now, so this is the negative. This is what happens in yoga. The conditioned turnings within the heart become uprooted as the pure turnings take root and flower. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not any kind of gardener. You're not going to ever see me out in the garden gardening. But I do know that you don't garden by taking, a bunch of seeds and just throwing them on the ground. I know that you're supposed to, cultivate the earth, right? And you uproot the rocks, the weeds, the McDonald's wrappers, various cigarette, container things. And, you get all that junk out of the earth and you cultivate nice soil. And there's a machine, isn't there? Something that tills the soil. What is it called? Right, a rototiller, right? Right. Well, look at this. A rototiller. I think that's genius, isn't it? No, you're not that impressed. Okay, that's fine. Actually, upon thinking about it further, I'm not that impressed either. But I thought I'd throw it out there. But that is what is happening. As we cultivate the earth, these things that come up, you want to discard. You can't discard what you can't see. So the yoga process is about bringing these things to the surface so you can clear them out. Make room for the pure turnings, allowing those to take root and flower. So it's a process for the heart. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. And as I tried to show in probably too many slides on Friday night, is that it's the heart that is more fundamental than the mind. And the ancient Upanishads claim that the mind is within the heart, not the heart within the mind. Okay? So when we speak about the heart, we're also including the mind, we're including thought, we're including feeling, we're including the whole human in the heart. So vritti gets 2 types of turnings here. And the translation of vritti as turning is very literal. Vritti means turnings. Others translate it with more connotative vocabulary. But turning it is. And you know, we tend to have turnings when we think about things. For example, when we did something that we really regret, we keep turning that over and over. Have you ever noticed? Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Do I need to keep demonstrating this? But you know what I'm saying, right? We turn this over and over. Turning is so fundamental to yoga practice. For example, in the term parikrama, to walk around, pradakshina, circling his abode. I'm quoting, what am I quoting here? KJ. What would that be? I can't remember what I can't remember where I got that from. Anyway, it's from somewhere. Okay, and Yoga Sutra, Chitta Vritti, turning of the heart. Ras Lila, the Sampravritta, and we'll see this later, the perfect turning forth. Gopi Mandala Manditaha, a perfect decorated circle of gopis turning. So turning has to do with mandala, has to do with circularity, and so on. And it's the nature of consciousness. Consciousness doesn't just sit there, it's active, it's turning. The Bhagavad Gita, anuvartante, respond with the turning of their hearts. Ishwara, core of the circumference. Circumference, it's a complete circle. Yogeshwara, uniting through yoga with the core, yoga, the core with the circumference. I think I messed that up a little bit. Uniting through yoga with the core of the circumference of reality. So these are considered, in the shape, sort of a divine geometry of circularity. Okay, so I want to share with you one sutra text of the Yoga Sutra, which I find extremely powerful and really explaining the ultimate state of yoga. Of course, this is the Sanskrit, but we'll move on to the translation. When the conditioned turnings cease. So now we know what that means from the first sutra text, right? The conditioned turnings cease, okay? And a divine presence fills the whole heart like the light reflected in the facets of a jewel. And when the one who embraces, the embracing itself, and the one to be embraced all become united, then that state of union is that in which the meditator is anointed by a divine grace. This is the close coming together, samapatti, or the mutual embrace of the meditator with the divine beloved. Okay, so what's happening here? When the conditioned turnings cease, this is yogash chitta vritti nirodha. In the negative translation, when the turnings cease, when the uprootedness of these turnings, of these conditioned turnings, come to the surface, and they're in effect eliminated. And a divine presence fills the whole heart like the light reflected in the facets of a jewel. If any of you are about to go to a jewelry store and you're going to put, say, 10 grand down on a diamond, and you see a bunch of loose diamonds in a case, and you don't have the help of a jeweler, and you're going to pick out one of those rocks, and you have access, you can hold any of the rocks, what do you do to choose one of those diamonds? What do you do? Magnify it, okay. Okay, what? Okay, how do you see what shines bright? Okay, what do you, what you see? So how do you find the brilliance of that? What do you do with the gem? Oh, what are you doing? What? Yeah. Oh, you're turning. You're turning. There you go. Okay. You're turning the diamond so the facets can catch the light. Am I right? Before you put the 10 grand down? You better. I mean, it better be darn beautiful if you're going to put 10 grand down on a rock, okay, that comes from igneous volcanic stuff, okay? You turn it. And here, the self is considered as if a gem that turns to catch the light in its facets. Patanjali is brilliant in his understanding of the self. So you get rid of the negative turnings, the conditioned turnings, and you fill up with these turnings that are able to catch the light, which implies a divine source. No gems are self-illuminated. They require light from an external source to then be caught in the facets. And that's what we're trying to do in yoga, to become purified enough to have that light be caught in the facets of our souls. That's yoga. Oh, I just happen to have the diamond right here. Yeah, I purchased a very big one right here. It's not quite that big, it's half that size. In my imagination. And when the one who embraces, the embracing itself, and the one to be embraced all become united, meditation is not a passive thing. Let me just sit here, let me quiet my mind, let me concentrate on my breathing. That's fine. That's a good exercise. But ultimately, it's not passive. We are focusing on something. We are, in effect, landing our consciousness on something that we want to know more and more and more. That's dharana. We cannot be close enough to the beloved object. In love, we cannot be close enough to the beloved. That's true love. We always want to enter more and more into the mystery of the other. That even includes relationships here, but certainly with the divine. Then that state of union is that in which the meditator is anointed by divine grace. The word here is anjanata. Anjana. Patanjali does not use words loosely. He's very, very ingeniously engaging the very powerful literal meaning of the words. And anjana means ointment. And anjanata means a state of being anointed. And that's the light that's lighting us up. It's stating that in meditation, we become actively affected by the object of meditation. So we meditate on the object, but guess what? The object meditates on us. That's the good news. It's not just a human effort. Yoga is not just for humans. Yoga is also for the divine. That's why Krishna is called Yogeshwara, the Ishwara of yoga. This is the close coming together, samapatti, or the mutual embrace of meditator with the divine beloved. Some interpretations of samapatti say that it's samadhi. It's the same as samadhi. And I say no. Samadhi is the total, giving of oneself to the object. It's right there in the morphology of the word. It implies that it's really denoting the idea that the yogi or yogini is completely giving him or herself over to the object. But what this particular aphorism talks about is the way the object gives itself over to us. So our meditations are not utterly and totally dependent on our own efforts, but something happens to us. Look, everyone's in here has experienced it. Whether it's an asana practice or whatever, you end up doing things that you didn't expect you could do, right? Everyone's experienced that. Little extra something happened today. That's something beyond us happening to us. So everyone experiences this at least a little tiny bit here and there. And that keeps us wanting more and more and more. So, when the conditioned turning cease and a divine presence fills the whole heart like the light reflected in the facets of a jewel that you purchased, right? You did, yeah. You got it, right? Remember? Okay, good. I want to give you credit. And when the one who embraces, the embracing itself and the one to be embraced all become united, then that state of union is that in which the meditator is anointed by divine grace. This is the close coming together, samapatti, or the mutual embrace of meditator with the divine beloved. Let's take a quick just a session for any comments or questions for clarification. Then we'll take a quick 10-second break. Okay, 10-minute, no, it's too long. A moment, okay? A moment for stretching. But any comments or questions first? Oops, okay, we're grabbing a microphone, okay.
Thank you. So is Nirodha means taking out the bad stuff, like
right.
The bad conditioning?
Uprooting. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Like plowing.
Like plowing, yeah,
okay.
Tilling the soil.
And that will lead to the last one we tried to understand.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, by tilling the soil of the consciousness and of the heart, one then is making room for those beautiful bulbs that take root and flower. And consciousness flowers, and it grows into macro and micro levels. And now you know what I mean by that, to this greater level beyond our individuality and the depths within. It grows in those two directions, just like a bulb takes root and flowers. Those two directions. Isn't that amazing? It's just, these metaphors I think are absolutely amazing. And it's important for us to know this stuff because we can begin to start seeing this stuff happening. We can begin to recognize it. Otherwise, you don't know what's happening. And who goes and starts a garden without knowing they're gardening? Oh, yes.
You may, I think you're probably going to talk about this later, so I'm sorry if I'm moving ahead, but
Not a problem.
When you say yoga, the practice of yoga, which one of them? The yama, niyama, all of them? Is Vara Pranidhana yoga? Or all of the other limbs? Or
Okay, good. At one level, Patanjali indicates that just in the capacity to go deep within, to move deeply within the space of the heart, is perfection of yoga. Everything else follows from that. But we're not, then Patanjali says, I realize you're not all there yet. So let me explain that we add two other phases, which is tapas and swadhyaya, and then Ishvara pranidhana. So we can't reach pranidhana yoga right off the bat, so perfection. So there are steps to pranidhana. And then if we need a little more than that, then we do ashtanga. So these are all part of the same yoga. We all end up at Ishvara pranidhana. But we may get there through more nuanced processes, like yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. We may, and that's helpful to enunciate those limbs and to be able to see our practices divided in these ways, and to take stock on which angas, which limbs are we tending to emphasize, and which ones are we not, or which ones are we neglecting, so we can increase our yoga practice this way. I see that I'm really good at asana and pranayama, but I'm not really, when I get together with family, I just lose everything. I just go berserko, and they're crazy, and I'm crazy with them. And maybe it's time to start looking at the yamas. interact. These are the you know the 5 ways of interacting with people: ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, and aparigraha. That's right, aparigraha. So the idea is that we can go deep into each of these limbs, just like we did just now for the yamas. So yoga is, and I'm going to pun intentionally here, flexible. It is flexible. You did that earlier. You said that. You took it right from, whatever. Yoga is flexible. No one's telling you how to go about your yoga practice. However, it is good to have teachers who have made the journey, who've taken the trek, the difficult path, and to learn from them, and you can accelerate your practice by such guidance. Was that helpful at all? Okay, good.
Okay, I'm going to come back to Nirodha, or the tilling of the
You like that
condition.
whole thing, huh?
Yes.
The tilling thing, the Nirodha
because
tiller?
I think it is very powerful, and it's very fundamental for one to move forward.
Yes.
But my question is that when we try to do that, I know there are a lot of maybe negatives, like you're saying, we try to weed a lot of negativity out.
Yeah.
That's important.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we're doing that in that process, how do you try to not to get yourself discouraged? Because when you see a lot of
Junk
weed coming out, it kind of makes you aware of those things that are within you.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure you stay steadfast and not let yourself discouraged?
Yeah. I mean, look, to do yoga seriously is a courageous pursuit. I mean, it is. To be confronted with one's samskaras, as I mentioned the Friday night, scars, right? It's unpleasant. Scars are unpleasant to look at. I mean, do I have any I can show you? No, I'm not. Okay, but if you've seen a scar, they're unpleasant. So you have to be courageous. And yoga is a courageous pursuit. There's no question about it. Look, sometimes when you've been in asana practices with a group in a center, someone sometimes, invariably, breaks down and starts crying their hearts, just bawling. And a good instructor will say, hey, great, you're doing great, keep going. Keep releasing. I remember once I went to a massage therapist. My mother gave me 8 sessions for my birthday. I don't know what she was thinking, but whatever. So I decided, well, what the heck, I'll go, I'll go to a massage therapist. Never been, right? And one time, he was massaging the back, and I started laughing, hilarious. There was nothing funny in this room. The therapist actually was quite a bore, and was not good with jokes either, I found out. And I started laughing. I couldn't stop. Something in the chakra. See, the chakras, by the way, they're circles. They're turning, okay? These are psychoenergetic centers that are turning. And like any good wheels on cars, they don't like potholes. Who likes a pothole for your car? It means you got to go get the axle, it's a mess. I don't know much about cars. But you don't want, a flat tire. So yoga is about repairing the axles so the wheels can keep turning more freely. If my parents, kept telling me as a child to be quiet and just don't talk, and emotionally maybe abusive that way, I might be up here sounding like this because, that chakra, the Vishuddha chakra, was just stuck. Okay? So that stuff needs to come out in yoga practice so that wheel can keep turning. My parents did not, by the way, do that. In fact, my wife says I'm too loud, and I'm probably pressing on the accelerator too much with the Vishuddha chakra. So anyway, but the idea is to get these chakras moving smoothly and sweetly. But yes, it's not always a pleasant process. Also with the body, you may find aches and pains. And it's like, but keep going, you will move through it. So even on a bodily level, what to speak of an emotional level as well. So, courageous.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yoga Sutra 1.2, the Yoga Chitravati Nirodhaha. So I have read that in one of the I like your Nirodha translation. But one translation I read was Yoga Chitravati, when you control the chit, or you achieve the control of chit and vritti, control your monkey mind of chit and vritti. Then
Monkey,
you can,
wait, we're talking about monkeys now? or
monkey
we're talking-
mind.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, the
Monkey
mind's a monkey
Mind's
mind.
a monkey, right?
But you're
So-
a human.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, but
that's
if you,
fine. I just needed to
what
know.
read-
I didn't know you're talking about monkeys.
But we came from monkey, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I've seen monkeys,
Yeah.
but
We
there's no
came-
controlling them, right?
Yeah, but we came from monkey anyway. But what I read was that one of the if you control like in chitti and vritti, then you achieve the goal of yoga. If you
Yes.
control the chit and vritti, then you can have achieved the goal of the yoga. What do you think of that kind of?
Well, in yoga, it's not so. I know, like for example, for pranayama, we often translate that as breath control. I mean, we're not really controlling the breath. We're balancing it, we're deepening it, and expanding it. So yoga is really not about control. It's about naturally finding our, capacities enhanced and just greater abilities. So the mind, the Gita says, is ultimately, like I said the other night, the mind is more difficult to control than the wind. Arjuna says this. But Krishna says you control the mind. You can control the mind in the heart. That's the key. So it's all part of opening up the heart, and these other things are incidentally addressed. That's the idea. Does that make sense? Kind of. Come at me again.
What I'm trying to say that if you control your mind,
If you control your mind, okay.
if you control your vritti,
The vritti, the turnings of the mind, okay.
then you probably are more towards achieving the goal of yoga.
Achieve the goal of yoga. Yes. So there you're translating the word chitta as mind, and that's fine. That is a valid translation of it, but so is heart. But no one translates it that way. At least I have not found. So, but the reason I do is it's not because of me. It's because it's all over the Upanishads, that the mind is part of the heart. It's in the heart. So by opening up the heart, we're already taking care of the mind. That's the beauty of
How vritti aligns with the heart. How the vritti aligns with the heart.
the vritti lies in the heart, aligns with the heart. How is it aligned with the heart? The vrittis. Oh, the turnings in the heart. Oh, we're going to see that. Well, I'm going to save that for the second half addresses this. Okay? It's good. You're anticipating the next part. Good. Yes.
So I guess your perspective of
Yeah.
Do we have a lost microphone? Did someone swallow it?
Yeah, I was in it.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So we'll go here and then we'll come back to you. Okay? Good. Good.
I don't know, you may be saving this, so you're starting to talk about it, but you mentioned the mind is in the heart. What are the major difference? I needed more clarification on the difference then, as it relates.
Well, okay, so the mind, I know we talk about the mind a lot. We like mindfulness. Okay, Kabat-Zinn, what's his name? I forgot his first name. John Kabat-Zinn, right. In 1999, he wrote a book on mindfulness. And I heard his interview on NPR, and they asked, how did you come up with this term? He said, well, he noticed the term mindlessness, and people were mindless. I figured we want to become mindful. And then the Buddhists ran away with the term. Now, I think the term was also used previously by certain Buddhist thinkers, but it became really popular after, Kabat-Zinn wrote about it. But being mindful is being cognizant, but along with cognizance is affectiveness. We feel things as we observe and absorb things cognitively. I feel that's been neglected. That part has been neglected. And really, what we're talking about in this state of yoga is what, well, hridaye chitta samvit. From deep within the heart, chitta can be fully realized. There it is, right in the Yoga Sutra. Hridaye chitta samvit, 3 simple words. So that should answer your question as well as hopefully yours, that the heart contains it all. It's deep within the heart. Then there are other things that are more ancillary, the mind, emotions, etc., etc.
So heart is related to the feelings and emotions.
Everything.
But the mind
It's more the cognitive, yeah. The mind is like your hard drive. It stores everything. So that horror film you saw 2 weeks ago? Well, it's in there. Okay? Those images of, right? Awful images, right? It's in there, okay? And, it's unlike a hard drive in a computer, you can't erase it. It's there. It's in there. Actually, in a computer, I hear that it's not exactly fully erased, but you can do a hard, what is it called? A hard erase or something like that. Anyway, so it's sort of similar in a way. But all those experiences that we're exposed to is registered in the hard drive of the mind. Now the question is, what do we do with them? What do we do with those horror film images? Maybe the mind is like a sieve. Some of the things that just don't matter, it goes right through the sieve. It's just ineffectual. Like I can't remember much of what happened in middle school because I didn't like it much, But I can remember the name and the visuals of my 2nd grade teacher who terrorized me. Okay, now I'm here because I trust all of you, okay? I want to tell you about my 2nd grade teacher. Even her name, Mrs. Wexler. Doesn't that sound like horrible? I don't know. Anyway, I can remember her name, but I can't remember my 3rd grade teacher. Why? Nothing much happened. Ineffectual. So there are things. So what is the mind? The mind stores the most pleasurable and painful, fearful, and wishful data. And everything in between, just ineffectual. So we store those experiences which are the most pleasurable and the most painful, wishful, and fearful. And in case we're not dealing with them consciously, we go to the Netflix of the mind every night, and we don't get to choose what the film is. It's called dreams. I don't know about you, but I have some really weird dreams, okay? And frankly, some of them are really boring. I dream about what happened yesterday. And even while I'm dreaming, I'm thinking, are you so uninteresting as a person? You have to repeat the previous day? So dreams are, but there's some reason why I'm thinking of the previous day. Something unaddressed, something I didn't care. The dream world addresses the mind, what isn't being addressed. Then it comes back to you in dreams. Now, I know I'm really doing well when I start translating sacred texts in my dreams, which I tend to do. Yeah, that's called obsession or whatever you want to call it. But I actually dream about sacred texts and struggle with translating them in a right way. So anyway, so again, where one's at is where you dream. Painful, pleasurable, wishful, and fearful. Okay, take that to your clients, okay? Yes. Okay, good. Okay, so first we go here, then there. Is that right? Okay, you go first, that's fine. We'll get to you.
Okay. I think over the past few years, maybe it's partly because I'm living here at Yogaville, but also I was blessed to meet a teacher 30 years ago, I'm feeling more and more an overwhelming sense of love coming from God, and also my love for God. And we were taught as children as God is this omnipotent power. And I think I'm now at the point where it's really meaningful to me that God is within, that this love I'm feeling is coming from within, and the love I feel is within. And it's healing a lot of voids, and it's filling a lot. And I've kept my mind separate. You know, my guru knows what I'm thinking, so I'm careful what I think. And if I want to do something and I feel a sense of anxiety, if I do it, it always turns out to be a bad decision. So I guess I'm getting to my question is, how do I improve this discernment? How do I be my own fortune teller, maybe if I can use that word, so that I can continue, I guess, moving forward with my path, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Very good. Well, you sound like you have a very happy life, which is wonderful. Guru, and you say you have a guru, a teacher. So guru should be, and ideally would be, the outer manifestation of the internal guru in the heart. The guru within the heart is called Chaita Guru. And the whole purpose of the external guru is to stimulate an awareness and an interaction of the internal guru. Because you're not going to always have the guru. So guru expands. Guru is something that grows and expands. The tattva of the guru, the energy and the principle of guru, is something that can work through in a lot of different ways. But initially, it's like having a parent. You have parents, but then you grow out of having parents. Well, maybe my kids don't, but that's another story. But anyway, the point is that that this is a wonderful exercise in acting and deliberating authentically. It's part of the buddhi. It's part of what Krishna speaks of in the Gita as buddhi yoga, the yoga of discernment. The yoga of discernment. And part of that discernment and that facility to be discerning is the ability to be able to understand the gunas, the trigunyas. And we don't have time to go into all of that. But the gunas of sattva, rajas, and tamas. To know what is life detracting and life nourishing. And the difference between both, to move toward things that are life nourishing and steering away from life detracting things. And then, of course, there's the place in the middle, which means there's a combination, right? Haven't you ever had a friend that's really like great in some ways, but it's just kind of not so great in other ways? And and you're part of that interaction, so that's the way your friendship is. You need to decide whether this can be elevated or just get rid of that friend, So, I mean, we know when something's really elevating and energizing. We know when something's really draining and just, exhausting. So, guru within, guru without is ideal. That's ideal. Is that helpful at all? Yeah. So you will hear more and more your voice because of guru on the outside. Yeah, inside, yeah. Good, thank you for that. Yeah.
Okay. In the society tend to diminish the heart and say that it's not smart enough, that you need to be rational, you need to think things through, and we tend to diminish feeling in general. If someone chooses by the heart or the feelings, yeah, it may have some value if it works out well. But if it doesn't, yeah, you haven't thought it through very well. That's the most common appreciation of the heart in this society. But what you're saying is that the heart might not be rational, but the heart has wisdom, which is even above that being intelligent or being just rational. It's having wisdom. So, but how do we, I guess it's all encompassed what you just say, reach to that point that we can trust or reach to that wisdom of the heart that encompasses also the mind and contemplate the rational inputs that we may get.
Yes. Very good. We're always acting from the heart, whether we know it or not. Like I think I mentioned already, my students, when they're choosing this, what's called shopping week. There's a week where you don't have to commit to courses. You can kind of sit in on a class, check out the professor, check out the syllabus. Ostensibly, you're checking out the syllabus, which is a kind of contract, frankly, between you and the professor. What you're going to be committing to, how many papers you have to write, are there exams, and all that kind of, university nonsense stuff. Okay. But really, what students are doing is they're checking out the professor. Because, a course can be absolutely the best subject in the world, but can be ruined by a bad professor, and vice versa. Once when I was at Johns Hopkins, a fellow student told me, you've got to take, I remember the professor's name, Ray Sprinkle's course. I said, but he's teaching this stuff on modern atonal music and all this kind of stuff. I don't like that. He said, it doesn't matter what he teaches. It's just fantastic to see him teach. He's so into it. It's so fascinating. And it was true. I hated the subject, but the teacher was amazing. I got an A. Because it was so inspiring. So the teacher is everything. So, again, the heart is inspired by such teachers. That's where we go. And you're right. We're afraid of the heart. There are no courses in the university on the heart. For that matter, there are no courses in the university on tire repair, which I would have appreciated a few times. But the heart, it's almost like we're afraid to talk about the heart. We're also afraid to talk about the way we feel about something. Again, you're right. This is not generally respected, but I say feelings are absolute. Because no one else, not even a God, can control the way you feel. That belongs to you. Your body, it's about the cosmos, the biology, things are going on. Who knows what's going on in there, right? I mean, we don't do much about it except feed it occasionally. We breathe, that's nice. But the heart is something that is us and we own, and no one can tell us how we feel and why we feel. That's us. That belongs to us. I can tell you about intellectual things, that this is right, this is wrong. Someone the other day was reading me something from a book, and they were claiming that these ideas came from the Sanskrit. It was all wrong. It was incorrect. But they get away with writing this stuff because they make it popular, and that's, they make it. So, I mean, they can, they can just do this sort of thing. But intellectually, yes, we can correct one another. Emotionally, that's us. That belongs to us. So part, I think, of yoga is to be very settled in being able to present the way we think and feel together.
Yes, I guess my question, in a way, asked also, sometimes they're not in harmony.
Yeah.
Though.
Okay. Well, that's the war. That's the struggle, right? Look at Arjuna. He was trying to reason out why he should fight or why he should not fight, and neither one worked. So what did he resort to? His heart, and he had a breakdown. And he needed to have a breakdown because he was damned if he did and damned if he didn't fight. So you're right. They don't often work together. So that conflict is what hopefully yoga helps to harmonize, that war within. If that's not taken care of, then we create wars on the outside. Let me take this out on these people. Or if I happen to be a politician, it's a great opportunity to to work out my anger and frustration on others. It's a great opportunity. But it's all because of the war inside has never been taken care of. I mean, look, Hitler was a really good artist. Did you ever see some of his works? He got rejected from art school. Can you imagine? I was going to write to that art school. Good going. You know, had you educated this? So I tell all of my students, I am so glad you were admitted, because I'd hate to think what you would turn into if you had not been admitted, like Hitler. I'm very encouraging to my students. Really, I'm very appreciative. No, you're taking it wrong. I mean, well, maybe you're not. Yeah, maybe I should think about how I present these things. But the idea is, you know, when Hitler obviously was someone who just was crazy disconnected from his thinking and his feeling, and people then go for power. Is that they're trying to compensate for that lack of dealing with the war inside. So they take a war on the outside. Yeah, this is the human condition, is really what you're talking about.
I guess I interpreted that the mind being within the heart, that it was supposed to be a harmony always and everything was going to be pink.
Oh,
but no.
No. Heart,
Yes.
you know, the word hurt and heart are very phonetically closely sounding, right? The heart, I mean, I hate to repeat this trite expression that's gone around. Hurt people hurt people. But we can also say loving people bring out the love in other people. So, you know, it's just, in one sense, real simple. When we don't deal with the hurt here, we bring it outside and we hurt lots of people. Yeah, it's the human condition. So an amazing sacred text, in addition to the Bhagavad Gita, is the Bhagavata Purana. Now, the Puranas, there are 18 Puranas, and the most famous one of which is the Bhagavata Purana. It's considered the purest of all Puranas. Purana means history. It's you know, these Puranas are a collection, they each are collections of different narratives and stories and wisdom teachings, and just an amazing corpus of literature. Some of them are extremely long. The Bhagavata Purana, again, the most famous of all Puranas, all written in the Sanskrit language, is 18,000 verses, so the tradition says. It depends on how you break up some of the lines and the verses in some parts of the Bhagavata Purana. But honestly, I counted 14,000. So I don't know what is with the 4,000 verse disparity. But here the Bhagavata begins, and this is a painting on a temple wall in Jaipur. And I took a picture of it because it illustrates the heart of the Bhagavata Purana, the way it begins. How does it begin? Not surprisingly, it begins with the human condition. It's a king consulting with a great sage sitting on this asana, and the king knows he's going to die in 7 days. And he's consulting with the sage Shukadev. What is a person to do to prepare for death? What does a person need to know who is going to die? So this whole text really is about, I mean, it's ultimately a death narrative. What do we do? How do we leave this world? With what kind of consciousness do we have when we leave this world? So we'll go to the Bhagavata Purana, 10th book, chapter 29. Now, to show you the sort of voluminous, to give you a sense of the voluminous text that it is, it's got 335 chapters. And again, 14 to 18,000 verses, and in beautiful flowing Sanskrit language. But the 5 chapters in the 10th book that are considered the most precious and the height of the whole text is known as the Rasa Panchadhyayi, the 5 chapters on the rasa dance. Okay, so this is where we want to go this afternoon. So it all begins with this. I realize it's pretty, at least, right? I mean, if you can't read it, it's pretty. But it's translated this way, or transliterated, Bhagavan Uvacha, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Bhagavan apita ratri sharadot pulla malika viksharantun manaschakre yogamayam upashritaha. And like these other texts that we've been reading, like the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutra, this particular 5-chapter series, or this particular singled out 5-chapter area of the whole Bhagavata, has in its first verse a kind of bija or seed for the rest of the 5 chapters. The 5 chapters contain 173 verses, not even a third of the Bhagavad Gita. So it's a small passage, but very powerful and considered the ultimate statement of the whole Bhagavata Purana. 12 books, 335 chapters. It's about Krishna. Krishna who comes out into the forest at night in autumn, and he perceives the forest, the beauteous scene, paradisal scene of the forest in an autumn night with a full moon, and he sees the dark forest covered with night-blooming jasmine flowers. Even the beloved Lord, seeing those nights in autumn filled with blooming jasmine flowers, turned his mind toward love's delights, fully taking refuge in Yogamaya's elusive powers. So, what's happening here? In this first verse, we have the principles of the whole drama. And I say drama because this 5-chapter text conforms to the finest Sanskrit dramaturgical literature in the history of the language. And it's some of the most exquisite Sanskrit around, and it's also very hard to translate this Sanskrit because it has so much poetic significance in the words that it engages. So I'll give you an example in a minute. First of all, we see immediately the beloved Lord, the hero who takes refuge in love. So he turns his mind toward love's delights. Okay, that's pretty obvious what's going on there. He's turning his mind toward love's delights. Secondly, paradisal scenery. The scenery is beautiful. The beauteous scenery of nature, of this sort of transcendent realm. It's not really of this realm, it's sort of a transcendent realm, and yet it is this realm. It's sort of both at the same time, so it's very relatable. And then the heroines of this passage, the cowherd maidens, or the gopis, are not obviously there. We'll show you that in a second. They're there only metaphorically. And then fourthly is Yogamaya, the uniting power of love as Yogamaya, which means the divine feminine power of yoga. So, where are the gopikas, the Vraja gopikas, the cowherd maidens, who are the primary heroines the voice of the heroines is the most dominant voice in the whole 173 passage. So where are they? We see Bhagavan, okay, that's Krishna. He turns his mind toward love's delights, okay? There are blooming jasmine flowers at night, and Yogamaya. So we see those 3 principles. Where are the Vraja gopikas? Well, they're there metaphorically because when Krishna sees these nights, known as Ratri, Ratri is the name also of the Vedic goddess of night. So this goddess of the night is spoken of in the Vedas, and this is then mirroring the idea that the Vraja gopikas, the cowherd maidens, are coming out to the forest at night and are perceived by Krishna and anticipated by Krishna to come out to the forest by virtue of the fact that the forest is very darkened and the trees are very dark and the jasmine flowers are lit up at night much the way that young women in India have very black hair and they decorate it with jasmine flowers. So that called Krishna's attention to the Vrajagopikas. So they're there, but only metaphorically. So I happen to take a picture of that. There's Krishna coming out into the forest, right? And look at all the jasmine flowers lighting up the night. The next verse. Then the moon, king among stars, arose, spreading soothing reddish rays over the face of the eastern horizon, dispelling the sorrow from those who looked on, as a lover caresses his beloved's blushed face, consoling her after long separation. The metaphor here is as a lover touches the face of his beloved and she blushes, so the moon is touching the horizon with its reddish rays, so in effect causing the horizon to blush. Seeing the lotus flowers bloom in the perfect circle of the moon, beaming like the face of Rama, reddish like fresh kumkuma. Seeing the forest colored by the moon's gentle rays, he began to make sweet music, melting the hearts of fair maidens with beautiful eyes. So they're talking about the gopikas, the Vrajagopikas, the cowherd maidens. He's calling them. So he's basically beginning to call the gopis by making the sweet music. This is his love call, the flute music. So this is about being called to the divine realm. This passage begins with that. Now, it begins with the conditioned situations of these cowherd maidens. They're in their homes, but suddenly they hear the call of the flute, and they drop everything. And it is described that they run out of their homes, or we're going to see that later. We'll probably see that tomorrow's session. But they are called out of their homes, and they drop everything. Even some of them were only just half dressing themselves with earrings. One earring on one ear and no earring in the other ear. Some were just getting ready to dress themselves. Some of them were in the kitchens cooking things. They left things on the stove. It's illustrating the nature of death. Death happens in the middle of everything. Have you noticed? We can't time death. Like, you put it on the calendar, 5 o'clock on Saturday, we'll kick the bucket. It doesn't work that way. So a death narrative is something that shows the sudden departure. Ready or not, you depart. And in effect, Krishna's love call is a call to his heart of these Vrajagopikas, these fair maidens who represent the soul. So Krishna is representing the divinity who calls us. Divinity is not passive. In this tradition, it's not someone sitting in a throne with a very long beard. In fact, Krishna doesn't have a beard. He happens to have long hair, by the way, but not a beard, okay? And he didn't work out in the gym. He's not particularly buff. He's just very beautiful, because divinity in this tradition is considered supremely beautiful, supremely playful, and supremely joyful. These three things. So this narrative celebrates all three: supremely beautiful, playful, and joyful. So there he is, and he's calling. So this is the outward gaze of divinity. This is where he's looking outward at us. He's calling us to his beautiful realm, as you can see all around. This beautiful realm. By the way, this is a painting that I commissioned by an artist in Bethesda, Maryland. And she has been doing this kind of art, her own style, for decades. And she's published. She's very well published and has shows around the world. And She did this painting specifically for the cover of my book that's just come out that you'll see this evening. Okay? And I happen to have reproductions of this for anyone who wants to take Krishna home with them. Okay? So you can take that love call home and be reminded that you're being called. Okay? I'm not saying you're going to die when you take the picture home. There's no connection that way. Please, don't be anxious about this. But we all are going to be called, okay, one way or another. Upon hearing that sweet music, their passion for him swelling, the young women of Vraja, whose minds were captured by Krishna, unaware of one another, ran off toward the place where their beloved was waiting, with their earrings swinging wildly. Javalo Lokundala. Another beautiful painting that is, by the way, reproduced in the book, but only in grayscale, because they couldn't have the book to be too expensive with the reproduction of color. But we, again, have color reproductions of this beautiful painting of one of the Vrajagopikas running out to the forest in response to Krishna's call. The passage explains that the Vrajagopikas in their homes dropped everything and they relinquished a body of physical elements. Now, if that isn't called death, I don't know what is. So it's kind of a death narrative. So they go and take on a spiritual body. So this is a spiritual body that is about to interact with Krishna, who's already the embodiment of all spirit. So this is what's happening here. But at the same time, they return to their homes at the end of the passage, which is curious. So again, this is a lila. This is a divine act with a circuitous kind of nature because it's an eternal night. So they go back home only to be awakened to the love call the next night. So this is the dance. But there is literally a dance that comes up, and I'm going to take you there. So jumping from Act 1, or chapter 29, to chapter 33, which is the fifth act, the fifth chapter, I want to show you how this culminates, this 5-chapter drama, with different events in between, which are significant, which we will talk about tomorrow. I want to show you how it culminates into the dance. Thus, having heard the enchanting words of the beloved Lord, the gopis forgot the agony caused by separation from him. Their desires were fulfilled simply by touching his limbs. Then Govinda, who's another name for Krishna, commenced with the play of the rasa dance with his beloved ones. Those jewel-like maidens joined together by pure love, linked their arms with one another. The festival of the rasa dance began blossoming forth with the perfect turning. With the perfect turning of a circular formation of gopis who were beautifully adorned. Now, this passage right here, Rasotsava Sampravritta Gopi Mandala Manditaha. So, Sampravritta, you hear the word vritti in there? Turning? Sampravritta, the perfect turning forth of gopis. So here we've got the perfection of turnings of consciousness. If we understand this drama, these acts in this drama, to be representing the inner workings of the heart, we will better know, as we read this passage over and over, we'll better know what is going on in our hearts. That's the whole idea. So it's a drama, an external enactment of what internally is going on. It's a dramatization of the inner workings of the heart, is what I'm trying to say. When the Supreme Lord of Yoga, Krishna himself, entered among them between each pair, when he with his arms grasped the necks of all those young women, each thought she alone was at his side. Then hundreds of celestial chariots crowded the sky, carrying the captivated denizens of the heavens, along with their wives, their souls anxious to behold that scene. Kettle drums resounded while showers of blossoms fell to the ground. The leading Gandharvas and their wives sang about his perfect glory. So this dance took place in the middle of the night in a forest where there were no instruments and singers, except the gopis themselves were singing, and Krishna was appreciating it. But what happened is that these gopis formed a circle around Krishna by linking their arms, and Krishna duplicated himself multiple times to be with each and every gopi. The great symbolism of this is that humanity has to first link arms to express a kind of inclusivity. And only then does divinity come to us exclusively. Religion tends to reverse this. Religion often tends to assert exclusivity before it achieves inclusivity. So this is a reversal of the typical way that religion will claim exclusivity before it achieves inclusivity. The bracelets, ankle bells, and bells decorating the waists of those young women, each with her own beloved, created a tumultuous sound in the circle of the rasa dance. There, glowing brilliantly among them, was the beloved Lord, son of Devaki. In a setting of golden ornaments, he appeared like a magnificent emerald. Now, we all know that Krishna is of what complexion? What color is Krishna? Blue. Here it's saying he appears like a magnificent emerald. Maha Marakataha. How is that possible? One of the commentators say that this is not true. Krishna's blue. He's always blue. He's never green. But one of the later commentators explains, well, it's a fact, Krishna's blue, but he appears to be green in close proximity with the golden-colored gopis. You mix the color of gold or yellow with the primary color blue, you get green. There you go. And this expresses the way that the devoted souls can even melt the heart of the divine. That's how powerful, ultimately, our hearts can be. So this is expressing what we saw in the earlier aphorism of Patanjali, that we don't just go to the divine, but the divine comes to us. And here is an expression of that. And what happens to the divine? The heart of the divine is also melted. And this then becomes the climactic verse of the whole passage. With their feet stepping to the dance, with gestures of their hands, loving smiles and sporting eyebrows, with waists bending and the rhythmic movements of garments covering their breasts, with earrings swinging on their cheeks. The spiritual wives of Krishna, with moistened faces and braids and belts tied tightly, sang his praises. They appeared like lustrous flashes of radiant lightning engulfed by a ring of dark clouds. While dancing, they sang out loud, and the throats of those so delighted by love became reddened. They were overjoyed by the touch of Krishna, and the whole universe became filled with their song. So this is like the perfection of the perfection of the perfection. To be touched by divinity, to be singing in such a way to fill the universe with song in response to divinity's touching us is these are like pictures of perfection. The beauty of their faces was enhanced by droplets of perspiration decorating their cheeks. and by lotus flowers in their hair and behind their ears. With music resounding from their bracelets and ankle bells, and garlands falling from their hair, the gopis danced together with their beloved Lord. Bees became a chorus of singers in that assembly of the rasa dance. And then finally, observing the play of Krishna, celestial ladies moving in the sky became enchanted, and passion in them rose in them. Even the moon with its constellations became amazed. And then finally, this verse, having multiplied himself in as many forms as there were cowherd women, he, the beloved Lord, even though all pleasure exists within himself, delighted in loving them within this divine play. And there's the painting I commissioned to precisely convey what was going on in the text. It took her 10 months to paint this, by the way. And I had to raise the money through donations to get this painted. But what an extraordinary piece it is. And I have reproductions of that available later today. Okay? So if you want to join the dance, you can do so like early, you know. This is me about 10 years ago. Okay, well, this is a cousin of mine, I think, maybe. Anyway, okay, so here I'm trying to show that this is where the dance goes. This is what the dance illustrates. In the Anahata Chakra, the endless turnings of the heart, its pure turnings, are represented and symbolized by this great dance between the Vrajagopikas and the Krishnas. The whole idea here is that the heart is turning just like this dance, and we can enter the dance within or without. Now here I've superimposed the heart chakra. Let's go back. The Muladhara chakra has how many, anyone know how many lotus petals it has? 4, that's right. And then the Swadhisthana chakra? 8, that's right. The Manipura chakra? 10. And the Anahata chakra? 12. Okay? Now, we have 12 sets of dancers. 1 set for each leaf of the Anahata chakra. So I superimposed the Anahata chakra over the painting to show you that's where they fit. A little close-up. I think it's quite beautiful. This is the dance that we enter, right here. Once we take care of the war, you know, then there's a party, and this is the party you get to join. And this is the inward gaze of divinity. The outward gaze of divinity we saw with Krishna playing the flute. Once we join the dance, then we attain the inward gaze of divinity. The turning of the Rasmandala within the Anahata chakra is the ultimate pranidhana yoga. This is what we discover in the heart. Here I am again. I mean, here he is again. And we have, of course, the 7 chakras. And we have the outer forms of yoga, the tapas of Kriya Yoga, which sends the energy, you know, down into the body. The body, you can it gains a certain power. Yogas of transcendence, of Jnana Yoga, raise the energy up and beyond the Brahmarandra, the Sahasrara chakra. But in the natural state of things, in the conditioned life, in the meso dimension of the heart, there's stasis, a kind of stagnation in a sense, because the heart doesn't expand the way it wants to, which is outwardly and inwardly to the macro dimension and the micro dimension. So, to receive the affection outwardly into the heart is there also the heart that radiates, going deep into the heart, and then the heart that radiates outwardly is the macro dimension. So we go from the micro dimension, going deep within the heart, to the macro dimension. Bye. So that was me 20 years ago or so. But that's what this drama is all about. It's a dramatization of our journey into the heart. By reading this drama, it's a very pleasurable, it's easier to read than the Bhagavad Gita, by the way. So, like I said, it's shorter, 173 verses, and it's in the form of a story. But it's a dramatization of the inner workings of the heart. So how to get that heart going, you asked, right? That's this tradition's way of getting it going. So we have 1 minute for all your questions. Any quick clarifications? Actually, we have 4 minutes. I'm looking at the wrong, that clock is wrong. We have 4 minutes. Yeah, over here, yeah.
Picture is so right. The picture is so the macro dimension. So this is how you connect to Brahman. I mean,
Yes.
Atman is Brahman.
Yes.
This is how you go into and connect to the outer.
That's
Brahman.
right. Yes, you connect to Brahman, but we also discover that the city of Brahman is located within the heart. So the essence of Brahman is in the heart. And guess what that is? The Ras Mandala.
So that's how the non-duality come in.
Yes,
Pretty much.
that's right.
Thank you.
That's the height of oneness. But it doesn't. But there's not merging. It doesn't boil everything down to the state of homogeneity. So in that sense, oneness. I mean, not in that sense of oneness, but the sense of unity as in a dance, an eternal dance.
So there is something called Aham Brahmasmi, right?
Yes.
This is how all connected together.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes. That's right. Very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Where's the death part?
I mean, is that the dance?
The death part is leaving this world. You know, when you go and, to a yoga center and, you get your mat out, like back in my day, we never had mats, by the way. Back in the 60s, there were no yoga mats. I was so shocked when mats came out, I just didn't understand. If you started slipping on the floor, you just got to get stronger, We were tough, rough back in the 60s, I mean, you can see it may not have done a lot of good, but whatever. But in any case, the issue is when we meditate, we're practicing death. When you go into meditation, you're leaving all behind. It's you connecting with the heights of reality of which you are capable. Meditation is a practice death. But also, you come out of meditation and you come back into life. So the Vraja Gopikas themselves meditated and they ran out to the forest. You'll see tomorrow that there was one gopi who couldn't run out to the forest. So she sat in meditation and she embraced Krishna from within. And I have paintings of that as well. So the meditating yogini, not yogini. Okay, we got that? No more yoginis. Yogini. Okay? So death, it's strange. You die to live more fully. it almost sounds like the Apostle Paul, doesn't it? You know, he says you die to live eternally in Christ. Okay, I mean, it's the same idea. It's the same dynamic. So we die to live more fully. Yeah.
Thank you. So, is the Raja Parikshit, did he get to live during that week of Bhagavad Purana, listening to Shukdev ji? Could he live life fully, listening to this Ras Leela and all episodes?
Well, he listened to a lot of things, and you're right, by knowing the name Maharaj Parikshit, this is his name, that's right. So it was that he was able to be killed by the snake bird, right, within 7 days, and he attained perfection, yes. But the ultimate of all of the leelas that were displayed in front of him, or described in front of him by Shuka, the ultimate one was the Rasa Panchadhyayi. But the whole idea is to contemplate the acts of the divine and then to join the divine by hearing those acts. And that's how he attained liberation, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm trying to find, just like Patanjali, trying to find big difference. The shortcut. Is there any bhakti practice exclusively, like a practice toward obtaining this beautiful dance in the heart?
Yes. The practice of Leela Smarana, the concentration and meditating and contemplating on these Leelas. The whole point, this is the power and value of Swadhyaya Yoga, the contemplating deeply, practicing the verses of the Gita, practicing the verses of the Rasa Panchadhyayi. These are the shortcuts, okay? These are the shortcuts. But asana ain't bad. I mean, keep up with the asanas. Those are also good. And the other limbs of yoga. But this is really pranidhana yoga, the moving deeply into the space within the heart. And as I describe this, it's a dramatization of the inner workings of the heart. So do the shortcut, but go the long range, the long cut too. Uh-huh. Yeah, do both. Yeah. One last question, maybe? Comment, question? If there is any? Oh, way over there, okay. Okay, she's running. It's good exercise. That's good. Aerobics, that's good. Yeah.
How do you deal with fear within the heart? Because some, is unconscious a lot of times. So how do you deal with the fears?
Yes. Fear. Most people say the opposite of love is hate. I don't think so. I think the opposite of love is fear. Hate is epiphenomenal to fear. Fear can cause human beings to do almost anything, unless one is really spiritually grounded. So fear is part of the conditioned self. It's that part of us that is going to feel isolated and disconnected from all. So that can motivate us to be excessively connecting with others in certain ways that are not healthy. It can cause us to hurt others for fear of ours being hurt. The fear of death can cause one to try to attain tons of power and tons of money. These are all expressions of this basic fear of death, fear of life. Yoga is just the opposite. Yoga celebrates the life we have and the human attributes with which we are endowed. So fear is exactly what is completely eliminated in yoga as the heart expands. As our hearts are filled with love, there is no more fear. But that's how we deal with fear, is to make sure that we're truly connected through the heart with the heart. So it's good. Fear is is a very important factor in the condition, understanding the conditioned state. But, you know, as I think I mentioned earlier, Gandhi, he was fearless. And when he was shot in the chest at close range, he didn't attend his mortal wounds. He said, almost thanking his assailant, because he saw the big picture. It wasn't just this hateful person. He thanked him because he saw him as an agent of Ram. So he said, Hey Ram, Hey Ram. And in the Gita, by reciting the name of divinity at death is perfection. And that's a fearless act.
I think I had this to be transparent. In meditation today, it came up to me.
It kind of had an epiphany. There's a higher spiritual aspect of me. I have several prophecies, all that great stuff. But there's a part of me that is fearful of that higher light that was in me. So I think a part of me, my fear is causing me to be stagnant.
Okay.
And that I needed to embrace it instead of running from it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, by the way, this is not uncommon. As one progresses spiritually, one can fear like what the next step is. And the not knowing of that step, going deep into meditation can be a scary thing. So a fear of what's not known or not experienced, that can be something that can stimulate fear. But in one sense, that could be also a healthy fear, you know? It's not known, yeah, what's that? Anxiety. Exciting? Anxiety, yes, anxiety, but also a little bit exciting. I mean, once I was pushed by friends when I was young to go on a new roller coaster in Denver. It was a new one that went around like upside down twice. Well, I hated it, but you know, I had to admit there was something a little exciting about that, right? You know, you take a chance. And you know, in practicing yoga, you are taking a chance. You don't know what you're going to discover. You go deep into the heart, deep into meditation. Things come out, you know, and things come out. I think one of you expressed like what happens when those things come out. And I've said you have to be courageous to do yoga, to practice yoga. So already you're conquering fear by practicing yoga. Yeah. That's good. There's a lot that can be said. We're going to talk more about that tomorrow. Yeah, yeah.
Exploration.
Yes, exploration. Yeah, when you take a journey, people tell me they're going on vacation. I said, you have no idea what's going to go on, okay? Yeah, your bags got lost by the airlines? Okay, that's great, that's fun. Mm-hmm. You know, that happened to me once in India. I landed in Mumbai. The airlines lost my bags. I had nothing. Yeah, they gave me $100. Go figure it out. Thank you. This is 1978, I think. Anyway, it's too long ago for me to remember. But, you know, you can't predict everything. You cannot control everything. So there is an adventurous sort of element to yoga as well as to life itself. If one can take to it with a sense of, you know, groundedness. And I think yoga affords one that groundedness. So if you can transform fear into kind of excitement, like let's see what happens, and I'm ready for it all. So I invite all of you to be ready and take risk for tonight's satsang. Okay, it's going to be a little unusual, what we talk about tonight, but you're kind of ready for it because I gave you a little bit of this material, so you'll see later on. The others won't have a clue about what I'm talking about, but you will. So you're special. Okay?